Cavin Balaster, thank you so much for being here with me on the Survivors to Thrivers show. I first heard about you, I guess, a couple of years ago, 2015, 16 area. You were starting to post stuff on Facebook about brain injury, and I found you through Feed a Brain and the book you released, and you're doing talks and things, and about the post brain injury recovery journey, and that's a lot about what I'm talking about. And I'm so thrilled to have you on this podcast.
Cheers, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And I love your background. That
Oh,
mandala is beautiful.
thank you.
I'm here in a library somewhere.
A library somewhere. That's what all those
Somewhere.
TVs are back there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. So we talked on the phone the other day last week, and we talked for like an hour and a half, and we had so much more to talk about. There was really just a whole lot of we planted a whole lot of seeds that I'm really interested to see which of those conversations we have in this first hour here today.
To it all.
Yeah, why don't we, in case that broke up, he said, I'm open to it all. Why don't we start with what you found? So our common story that we know each other through here is the traumatic brain injury, near-death experience, origin story. Let's mirror some of that back and forth. Let's just dive right in. That's what we're here for.
Superhero origin story.
The superhero origin story. I suppose.
So in 2011, I experienced a severe traumatic brain injury. I fell from a rooftop water tower. Instantly unconscious, rushed to the hospital. My family was told that I had less than a 10% chance of recovery a 10% chance of waking from the coma. They were told that even if I did wake up, I would likely remain in a persistent vegetative state. So I'm very, very, very lucky to have woken. And I think luck is a skill. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. But but yeah, so super lucky to have woken. And then I didn't eat, walk, or talk for months. My left hand was totally flexed inward. I was breathing through a tube. I was receiving nutrition through a tube, and lots went into my recovery. So much went into my recovery, and much of it outside of the medical standard of care. And this is what's really interesting. So I began to research more about like what I could do to give myself the best shot to recover. So at one point I was steered towards a nutritional protocol, and I started to regain clarity. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like I never heard anything about nutrition from the main, from the hospital, from the physical therapist, things of that sort. It just wasn't part of the conversation. And I was like, all right, well, nutrition is suddenly giving me clarity. And I'm like, what else didn't they tell me about nutrition? Like, all I knew about nutrition was the USDA food recommendations that have, I mean, they haven't done any favors for our health, right? And does anybody really take the USDA food recommendations seriously?
Ketchup is a vegetable.
Ketchup is a vegetable. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and here's
Not
what's
true.
crazy is the USDA it's the US Department of Agriculture. And if you go to their website, go to usda.gov, go to the tab about us, and then under the header that says what we do, it says we have a vision to provide economic opportunity through innovation, helping rural America to thrive. This has nothing to do with human health. This has everything to do
with food
economic or food. economic opportunity through innovation. And innovation is an interesting word too,
Yeah.
because humans, Homo sapiens, have been around 35,000 years, something like that. And that's not super innovative, our metabolism, the same thing that we ate back then will fuel our body very well today. You know, we don't need innovation. Our evolution isn't very innovative. It doesn't happen every 7 years or whatever that they determine to be innovative, which is basically for industry. So I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay, nutrition matters, and they're not saying anything about nutrition. What else aren't they telling me about? So I began to
Mm,
research everything I could. I used that reading clarity and I dove into study, and I began to research metabolism, brain metabolism, or neurometabolism, how the brain derives energy, um, health, neurology, how like aspects I can do to enhance my brain plasticity, and then to choose the pathways in order to create those connections. And I began to utilize those things. I got off of all medications,
hmm.
um, because it didn't
That's an
really make
accomplishment.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's an
didn't really.
accomplishment, bro. Mhm.
It really is. It really is. And I work with clients and help them to to step away from medications. There's no synthetic molecule that is supportive to the human organism. In the long run, it does not support normal human function to have a synthetic molecule that hasn't been introduced
A
to human
laboratory
physiology.
synthesized.
Yeah.
So I think what you're talking about is really interesting. And you said something um, that was a really like a kind of principle oriented, axiomatic, basically. The saying that talking about the difference between chemistry and nature.
Yeah. I mean, nature is chemistry in some ways, biochemistry, right? And biochemistry is fascinating. I love biochemistry and like seeing biochemical pathways and things and how our body creates different different chemicals and things in our body. But yeah, what we're talking about is synthetic, which
Hmm.
means made outside of the body in a laboratory, right? Synthetic versus endogenous, which means endo
Mm,
means in, genus means creation, right? So endogenous is created within you. And those are the most powerful compounds. I love supporting the endogenous creation of neurotransmitters, of antioxidants, and things of that sort. Of immunity. Um, these are really important things that we can do, and this is where I really was looking at. Okay, nutrition is something I can do. Nobody decides what goes in my mouth. I get to decide that. Um, and so that was a part of empowerment. It was like I can choose what I'm feeding myself, and that's when we look at the human body, the digestive system, starts at our mouth, runs through all sorts of tubing, esophagus, stomach, um, small intestines, large intestines, colon, out the anus, and like it's the tube running through us. And that tube takes stuff from the outside, like food, like liquid, like whatever we put in our mouth, and it brings it into the body. And it's a complicated scenario that happens to that, but it's the largest access point aside from our lungs, which bring in oxygen, right? It's the largest access point for things
and our
outside
skin,
of our body.
and our
Yeah, and
skin
our
too, because it
skin. Very
absorbs.
good, very good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't absorb as much as the gut does,
Of course.
But it depends on how much we eat also. We'll absorb we'll absorb what we can absorb, and that's a whole nother conversation with digestion.
Hmm.
But that's something that I can control. I can control the food I eat.
Hmm.
It's kind of less. I can control what I put on my skin, you
Hmm.
know, and that's so true. Also, like that's another access point into our physiology, into our organism. And recognizing these aspects that I had control over and that I could make the choices. And then recognizing that, all right, let's look back at um at the USDA food pyramid, at we have a vision to provide economic opportunity. And recognizing that so much of this is based on economic opportunity. What is a pharmaceutical company? It's publicly traded, first of all. Publicly traded means that they have like one of the most
Fiduciary
important things.
responsibility to their shareholders.
Fiduciary, exactly. Well said. Thank you. I wasn't sure I could find those words right then. Thanks for
Hmm.
saying that. Fiduciary responsibility for their shareholders. So
Hmm.
they need to make decisions that create profit for the company. So now let's look at
They're
supply
legally
and demand.
obligated to. They're legally obligated to. Hmm.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it, I mean,
that's
it's kind of loose or
debatable,
no?
but
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, they'll throw you off the board if you're not having that happen. You'll get voted
Yeah. They
out
can't sue
immediately,
you.
right?
Yeah. They wouldn't sue you.
Right.
Sure. Exactly.
But it's like, but yeah, they might as well be obligated. I mean, they are obligated, maybe not legally, but they're obligated,
Yeah. Right.
to create profits for the shareholders. All right, so it's a supply and demand model like all capitalism. And supply in this case is the drug, the surgery, and I'm talking about medicine in general.
Hmm.
Drug, surgery, imaging, uh, uh,
This is the industrial model, industrial medicine
testing,
model.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
testing, and a really a piece of gauze, like whatever they can put on that sheet on their billing list of billable items. That's supply. And the demand is the need for that item or the perceived need for that item. And that's really important because perceived need can also be perceived by the doctor, which is where we can start messing with science in order to get a certain protocol to become the standard of care.
Right.
So what's the standard? And we talked a little bit about the standard of care earlier. What's the standard of care? Well, if you look online, it's generally considered, it's a legal term. It was coined for medical malpractice claims, and a medical malpractice claim requires that, among other things, it requires that the defendant deviated from the applicable standard of care. Okay, so what's the standard of care? It's defined typically as the type and level of care an ordinary prudent healthcare professional with the same level of training and experience would provide under similar circumstances in the same community. So if you're given a grim prognosis like I was, you know, would you really like an ordinary doctor to give you the same treatment and it gets the same or similar results? Or would you like to get the treatment that's going to actually to get you exceptional results that are beyond the standard of care? So rewinding back to back to uh, uh, the making science show something that then informs the standard of care. This happened with the cholesterol scare, right? With statin drugs being what we're prescribing for, for to children prophylactically. There was a conversation to have statins put in our drinking supply.
Because it was
Um,
a standard.
Yeah, because it
right?
was the
Because of the
standard of care.
right,
And
right.
and basically, and that was a mess. I was like, statins basically shut down our body's ability to create cholesterol because the lipid bilayer that encapsulates every single cell that makes up the cell wall of every one of our trillions and trillions of cells, cholesterol is a component of that.
And
And
you need to have healthy cholesterol.
we need, yeah, and
Cholesterol is essential.
our body creates its own cholesterol. You know,
Hmm.
all of our cells create their own cholesterol. And so what statins do is they shut down that machinery so that you're no longer creating as much cholesterol. But why? Because we pointed at cholesterol being the problem. And I mean, it's pretty well known that like cholesterol is not a terrible thing. You know, Time magazine used to have they had that famous cover, which was the bacon and eggs. The eggs is the two eyes, and the bacon making a frowny face, and it was like cholesterol, and now the bad news.
Yeah.
And then you know, fast forward, I think it was 2013 or 14, something like that. They had a cover that said "Eat butter," and it was like, oh, changed their mind, you know, and
Yeah, move the move the goalposts.
move the
Yeah,
goalposts. Yeah,
I
keep
remember when I was a
humans
kid.
confused.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish that thought. You cut out.
Keeping humans confused, you know, move the
Yeah,
goalposts.
right. I remember. So that's, I mean, butter. It's hydrogenated oil, and hydrogenated oil is really also bad for um, cell. Like your body remakes your cell walls out of the hydrogenated oil, and it hardens the cell walls, so your cell walls aren't permeable, so they basically suffocate because they can't get nutrients and then they die. And I don't know
You're
the
not
exact
talking
science, but it's
about
kind of like
butter.
that.
You're talking about
Hydrogenated
margarine.
oil. Yeah,
Margarine.
hydrogenated
Yeah.
oil, something like that.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the narrative and
Because
moving the
butter's
goalposts,
great.
and butter's
Yeah.
great. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Butter and
Butter's
avocados
good
and like
stuff.
the brain runs on fat.
Yeah.
And when you take the fat away from people's diet, you make their brains not work and you make them run on sugar, which
Mhm.
is, I mean, sugar for the brain is like insidious and really unhealthy, right? Does your work talk about sugar, sweeteners,
Yeah.
and things like that?
Yeah. Um, However, I mean, basically, like, yeah, sugar is not good for us, but also artificial sweeteners are worse than sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's my
Artificial
understanding too.
sweeteners, whew, bad news. So yeah, I mean, um, I really like Feed a Brain. I'm very proud of my book, How to Feed a Brain. Um, which I wrote because I wanted it to be the resource I wish I had throughout my recovery
Mm,
that really um broke down how to feed your brain. Simple as that, right? Like here's nutrition for optimal brain function and repair. That's the subtitle, you know. And I wanted it to be the resource I wish I had throughout my recovery. So it comes with like full color PDFs you can print out, put on your fridge and all of that, and those are super useful.
cool.
Um, but yeah, that's the nutrition piece. And
And you get
go
that book by
ahead.
going to, sorry, you get that book by going to feedabrain.com, or where? Is it on?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
also on Amazon.
All
So
right. It's called Feed a Brain.
feedabrain.com.
Cool.
Yep, it's called How to Feed a Brain. You got it.
Yeah. Nice. So we've talked about diet. Um, for the people who've gotten through the diet part and they're still interested in the brain injury stories, which is, I think, more of so much of what we have that's really interesting to talk about, you're, I think, a point of contrast that's like really striking to me, about our shared experience, and like a nuance of difference between our shared experience is the way that the timing of our accidents affected the flow of our creative work. because you're doing creative work. I mean, everybody's doing some kind of creative work. Your accident happened when yours did, and you were already in the flow that you were in. Mine was, so let's kind of talk about that. How old are you now? I think we're pretty close to the same age. And your accident, tell me more about this, the timeline.
27
When you were
was
27.
when I experienced severe traumatic brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I was a musician prior to that. Like, music was my life. I played music, I recorded music, I went to school for recording arts. I produced music also. I moved to New York, I worked in a recording studio.
Wow.
I saved up money, I bought sound equipment and created my own recording studio in the ground floor duplex in my apartment. And I got a production crew together. We were doing mostly drum and bass and dubstep and some trip hop and things. And we would and I started renting sound equipment for underground warehouse parties usually throughout the 5 boroughs and other events also, but those are the main ones. And then I bumped my head and
Mm,
my focus shifted from music to medicine. And
mm,
and with medicine came this awareness of what's going on in medicine. And once you
mm,
see something, you can't unsee it. Once you see how insidious medicine is and how many lives are being traded for profits, how profits are put over people in medicine all the time, and how so many people don't want to see that, and so they pretend it's not the case, and they sweep it under the rug, and they tell you. I mean, I have this experience with my family all the time. Like, don't tell me these things. I don't want to hear it. Stop shoving your world down my throat. And I'm like, it's tricky. It's tricky to, like, it's not my world. It's truth. This is what's happening. This is my experience. This is the experience of people I work with. I had an initial call the other day with a family, um, and the husband, like in his 30s, his early 30s, has 3 children, 2 girls, 1 boy. The youngest is 18 months old, and he got the second Moderna vaccine, and now he is unable, and then he had a cardiac arrest, and now he's unable to talk without an enormous amount of effort. He's unable to walk, unable to balance, unable to initiate movement very, very well, and they're pumping him full of, medications, which,
they're part of the
which
standard of care.
are part of the standard of care. Oh, you have a dopamine, you have trouble initiating. Here, take this dopamine agonist, and we'll just squeeze your your
We'll
neurons to
chemically,
produce dopamine, and it's just what
we'll
I
chemically
mean.
induce you. We'll
Yeah,
chemically
chemically
induce you.
induce you.
Yeah.
And
To the
let me
state
back
that
up.
you want, right?
Let me back up to the lives that I've just watched, that contact me, that have just been so drastically affected. I mean, it's heavy.
Heavy.
It
It's
hurts my heart every single day.
and then to watch those pharmaceutical companies get slaps on the wrist that are fractions of a percent of their profit margin from those
They
exploits. And it's
they
just like all
plan
this,
it in.
I'm flooded with grief, man.
So much grief. I know. I mean, it's part of their business model. They intend to pay out ruined lives. Basically, people's lives who have been like death and permanent injury that's planned into their business structure.
Mhm.
And then you look at like how deep this goes. If you look at who owns most of these pharmaceuticals, it is it is BlackRock and Vanguard. They own just about all the pharmaceuticals, and they happen to own just about all of the media.
Wow.
So our perception of medicine
Yeah,
affects the way we purchase it and what becomes the standard of care. And I'm 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 saying all this stuff like, clearly I'm I'm saying some pretty heavy things, and it's just like, just don't even take my word for it. Look it up, like look these things up and understand yourself. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Truth. And that's what we need. We need people to see what's happening, because
yeah,
otherwise lives continue to get destroyed and
right.
it continues to be written off. I mean, with the Vaccine Injury Act of
86.
1986,
I
yeah,
remember I looked it up too. Yeah,
we
recently in the
can't,
last few months. You're
you're
not
not
even
allowed
allowed to
to
sue
sue
them.
these. But
Because
here's the
lawsuits go up
thing.
to a pool, and everybody who gets affected by the loss, everybody who gets affected by the medication that needs to sue for damages sues the fund that the government sets up in order to protect the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah,
Which is our tax
it's sinister.
dollars.
Yeah, it's super sinister, and
Yeah,
it's mind-boggling
it's
that that's allowed to
mind-boggling.
happen. Yeah, and so we're just here shedding some light on it. We're trying to motivate, not motivate, we're trying to bring awareness. Yeah, bring
Bring
awareness.
awareness, and and the other aspect of what we
Heavy.
wanted to talk about is this is doing so without getting super angry about things, which is
Mhm,
very hard.
mhm,
That
mhm.
was a what's the word I'm going for? It was a journey for me to step away from the anger and just seeing these people so hurt. It's it really it brings a visceral response in my body. And
Mhm.
stepping past that and just allowing everybody to have their experience, loving everybody anyways. And and this the situation, and we're all on this path. We're all doing the best we can. And there are things that do not deserve our attention, that do not deserve our we shouldn't be buying into these things. And
How do we
that's the
avoid that?
way.
How do
How
we
do we
avoid that?
avoid
Talk
buying into
I
these
mean, turn
things?
off the TV is one
Yeah,
thing you can
love it.
do, but like, tell me about
That
that.
is
Tell me more
huge.
about everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I have some friends who do training for police and military, so they know a lot of like higher ups in government. They have a friend who's ex-CIA, and he's not allowed to talk about a lot of stuff. He's signed all sorts of what uh
Disclosure documents.
NDAs,
Yeah, 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 for sure.
non-disclosure documents.
Well,
But they were my buddy said, "All right, I know you can't tell me a lot of things, but if there was one thing you would tell me, or you could tell me, what would it be?" And he looked at him with the most serious eyes and he said, "Don't watch TV."
mm,
Like with these just like such fervor and intensity, like, and I mean, you can even look up in mainstream science literature, the flickering of the TV puts people in a trance to where they're highly suggestible. And so if you want to hypnotize yourself and be highly suggestible, turn on the TV and they'll tell you what to think, right? And so all of this is to say these are just aspects in which, you know, in which these powerful tools like hypnosis are utilized, and how we can just step away, turn off the TV, you know, have conversations with your family,
Mhm.
with your friends, and yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, you're right on, dude. You're absolutely right on. And I'm reminded of all these things that I do in my life that I hated my parents doing to me when I was a kid. That now I'm more than thoroughly happily to say to my kid, no TV before school, no TV an hour before bedtime, like all those kinds of things, so that the brain can like orient to its own experience rather than the experience of some hero's journey narrative that the script writers pitch to the people who decide what to put on their programming that comes through your box on the. It's like, I mean, I remember the elders, like the old people when I was a kid. I remember them saying that the TV was like, they like the old people, you know, they, oh, it's just a scared old person. They're just crazy. Like but they used to say that the TV was a mind control box. Mm-hmm. What's that?
Right. The boob tube.
The boob
Uh,
tube.
uh, the boob tube. That's what my grandma used to call it. It's like, huh.
I mean,
But yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, you wanna, yeah, there's several ways to control the way a population thinks, and one of them is through. I mean, it's brilliant what TV's done. It's like
for
not
sure.
only are we going to have a stream of TV programming. This is TV
Programming,
programming,
literally called
right?
programming. Yeah, you're
They're not even like hiding it.
right.
But also we're gonna have you pay to have this TV programming in
So you feel
in
like it's
your
a
own,
benefit. So
so
you
you
feel
feel
like it's a
like it's a
benefit.
benefit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you're
And we have
so
to.
lucky
Yeah.
to be programmed, basically.
I mean, the graphics are
It's
good.
amazing. And the graphics are good. Yeah, they've been working on those.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then the other thing is school. Um, like
Oh yeah. Oh, I have
yeah,
a teaching degree. I've gone down this. Oh, the
yeah.
school and the mind. Yeah, and like the anthropological social heritage. Oh my. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm just. You're getting me. You're getting me in a spot, and I'm going off about it. But like it goes through ancestral trauma, and it goes through all these things. And I think I'm just trying to like. I see this. I see this timer on my screen telling me that Zoom has to upgrade. It's like I have this. That's not. That doesn't make sense. But we'll keep going. And I really want to get to a place where what do we do about all this? How can we shine light on this? So you know, what ideas do you have so that the people who've gotten this far in this episode or are feeling what we're talking about, what can any of them do so that healing can transpire?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So
it starts with
you,
diet, but yeah, please tell me more.
yeah, it does. It really does start with taking care of your organism. It really does. That's one of the most important things. Good. Taking care of your organism, which starts with what you eat, choosing what you're eating, cleaning up what you're putting into your body.
Oh,
Um, and there's the easy route, which is that, just eat whatever and genetically mind feed and eat
eat
what's
what
fed
tastes
to
good.
you and all that.
Yeah, eat what's fed to
Yeah.
you. Like, yeah,
And to eat all the products are designed to be addictive anyways.
right.
So
They
it's
are
like,
because that drives the profit
right,
models. Yeah,
Lay's, I bet you can't eat only one, right? Doritos are filled with MSG, and we know how those affect the glutamate receptors in our brain, um, and how addictive that is. And so it's like, seeing all these things and stepping away from addiction is a challenging place. It's facing yourself, and most people don't want to face themselves. No,
There you are.
my bad. My
All right,
bad, man.
we're back to recording. All good. We're all good. We're on this computer now. So
Cool.
you last
We're
said
going.
you last said I was holding it on. I was holding on to it in my head.
Oh, I know. I know. So what can we do?
What can we
What can
do?
we do? So number one is our organism, which
Yeah.
is taking care of ourselves, which means not introducing. So let's take my. I'll just speak about my story, my experience after after experiencing a brain injury and being like, oh man, wow, okay, so everything I put in my mouth that affects my entire body. Who'd have thought, right?
Everything's connected? What?
Right? But then the other thing, everything I put on my skin is also affecting my physiology. So and everything I put, eye drops or whatever, like anything I'm using on my body is going in my body, right? Obviously. So, and then employing the um, the the idea that anything I put into my body is guilty until proven innocent, not the other way around.
Hmm.
I'm not going to put something in my body that hasn't been in there before. That I don't know the long-term effects of, that hasn't been tested for a very, very long time. Like
Hmm.
it's guilty until it's proven innocent.
Right.
I'm not gonna be the test subject
Starting
of
with the
a
foundation,
novel.
starting with the foundation, maybe that what has been grown from the earth has already been tested by nature and
There you
deemed
go.
itself viable. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so I began to think about, all right, what if, let's see, Homo sapiens have been around 35,000 years.
Hmm.
Um, and let's see, back 35,000 years ago, we were very hunter-gatherer like,
Hmm.
we'd
Cro-Magnon kind
like
of diet.
agriculture hadn't even come. So, all right. So everything before agriculture, definitely our physiology has evolved utilizing, So we're very used to fruits, vegetables, especially ones that are grown naturally. Now, what about the ones that aren't grown naturally? What about the ones that utilize novel technologies like genetically modified organisms, which can basically be broken down into pesticide producing and herbicide resistant? Those are the
Hmm.
two main flavors of genetically modified foods.
Hmm.
Um, Herbicide resistant, you can spray them and spray them and spray them and spray them with glyphosate, which basically, if you and I should put something on my website to show how to look up peer-reviewed research because it's really pretty easy. Go to Google Scholar, type in glyphosate, Glyphosate, and health, and let me know what you find. I I have never seen a human study for glyphosate that didn't show something bad happening. Like
Wow.
it's glyphosate is bad
Wow.
for our health. Like it's clear. So we're gonna
But it
spray
kills the
this.
weeds and it makes our yard look pretty.
It
Cavin, we
kills the
want to have
weeds.
our weeds, have a garden.
And if we genetically modify the plant, then we can just spray it and spray it and spray it and spray it and spray it. So it shows that it contributes to leaky gut. It's cancer causing. It's known carcinogen. Like all
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
But it's the industry of it. We're utilizing. So so there's glyphosate. Like
So,
I don't want glyphosate anywhere near my food.
yeah, right.
Um, Pesticide producing is basically we genetically modify the actual meat of the vegetable with the actual mass of the
The
vegetable,
material,
plant,
the
or material, yeah,
the raw
to
matter.
produce
Sure.
its own uh, uh, to make it so that if it's ingested by a bug, it'll
Kill the
explode
bug.
that bug's stomach.
But what about the human
So,
organism that ingests it?
well, what happens when we ingest it? Well, apparently we're fine, right? Like,
Oh, we're
no,
fine. We're
it
fine.
contributes to leaky
It'll
gut,
be
and this is
fine.
shown in the literature, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, so yeah, so I don't want to eat things that aren't supportive to my body. That's another thing. Here's what's difficult. There's a lot of people who can't get organic food. And organic means it's not genetically modified, it's not sprayed with pesticides. So and that's basically all organic means. I have this slide that I show when I give presentations. It says, try organic food, or as your grandma called it, food. Because it's so true. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's outdated. Maybe it's your great grandma now. We've had GMOs around for a while, but like before we had pesticides or before we had genetically modified foods, everything was organic, right?
Right. And everything was grown in soil that was healthy, on and on
Yeah.
and on and on and on.
Uh-huh.
So we've really harped, I think we've really stressed this idea about you are what your body, you are what you put in your body. I mean, all
Put
what I can
in,
relate,
on, around, yeah.
yeah, what I can relate from my own experience to this whole idea about food, really, I was raised with. Like, the more you're talking about this journey that you went on, the more I'm realizing how blessed I am, because I was raised in a house where you eat something green with every meal, vegetables. And
Nice.
we were on the margarine kick for like like a year or two in the 80s, and then my parents were like, no more of this ever. Butter people. And so like, all these
Nice.
ideas and things about how to repair your body, and it's all about um, the metaphor that really landed for me, is that your body is a Formula One race car. You can't put 87 octane fuel in your Formula One race car and expect it to operate in any way that's normal and good. Like, you got to put, Formula One race cars take liquid fire, right? Don't they?
Yeah.
Nitrogen is don't they, aren't they like nitrogen? I can't even tell you,
I
but
don't
it's
know.
like
I don't know.
highly
I'm not a
combusted
race car
fuel.
driver.
Sure. But the metaphor
Yep.
stood for me and really connected. And like, I just
I
was
like
thinking
that.
about a Corolla or a Gia Metro, a fuel that makes them run isn't necessarily going to make your Formula One race car run.
Right. We all like that's another thing about being alive, being
Oh
a
my gosh.
survivor and a thriver. It's like I'm like, I mean, there was a time when I couldn't lift my wrists enough to wrap it around a guitar. Again, I was a musician. I couldn't talk, let alone sing. I'm like, man, my life's over. This is it, And then I shifted my perspective. I went, you know what? This is an adventure. And that's where my first blog and podcast was born, Adventures in Brain Injury. So yeah, Adventures in Brain Injury. I love that podcast. It's really
Mm,
fun to do podcasts.
yeah.
But now it's like, oh my God, look how awesome this human organism is that I have. It's so cool. I'm so appreciative of everything that
Yeah.
I have. It's so
Yeah.
good. And even the bad, the challenging, the hurtful, the painful, like it's all just a gift. It's amazing. And when we can get to that place where everything in our experience is a gift, that's like I don't know. It's a powerful, beautiful place to be.
How do you see that showing up through your brain injury near death experience? that's different than the way that kind of sentiment shows up in your friends and family who haven't had that kind of experience?
Yeah, nice. Um, there's a, there's less of a I think what it really comes down to is victim and I've heard victim and victor or
Mm,
survivor and thriver, like it's basically moving away from the victim mentality and the victim loop because in a trauma cycle. And what I mean by that is like where there's something, especially in relationships, when there's like a traumatic event that happens and somebody's the victim of somebody else's wrongdoing. And the other person's a victim of the other person's wrongdoing. And it just becomes this cycle that perpetuates itself. But you can break that cycle by recognizing that the only thing you're in charge of is yourself, and that you are responsible for everything in your experience. And namely, you're responsible for your own triggers as well. So owning things that trigger you and being like, ooh, I'm triggered. Okay. I'm gonna own that. I'm gonna breathe into it. I'm not going to react. I'm going to recognize the trigger. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna
breathe
choose
into it.
how I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, breathe into it
I've heard
and
3 breaths is a
respond
good
from that
technique.
place.
Yeah, 3 breaths, five
Okay.
seconds, something like that, to help your brain,
Yeah.
to help your neurophysiology reset.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're only in charge of your own. Yeah, you're only in
You're
charge of
only in
you.
charge. And
Right.
I'm sorry for bouncing around so much. It's kind of
Oh,
par
it's
for the
interesting
course with me.
conversation. We're having a great
We're
time. Yeah, we're having a
having a
great
great
time.
time.
Yeah.
But like when I was talking about my experience with my
Yeah.
injury, again, I'm responsible for myself. And I get to choose what I put in my body. I get to choose what I put on my body. I get to choose. And this is not always the case with people, but
Yeah.
actually, it's usually not. But being able to choose who you surround yourself with, who you spend your time with, that's really important. We talk about you are the culmination of the 7 people you spend the most time with or something like that, right?
Yeah. I've heard 5, but
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. Totally.
5, whatever. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like there's so much to that
Yeah.
is and another really important piece of that is people treat you the way you teach them to treat you. And that's a lot
That's
of
a heavy one.
responsibility.
It's a lot
That's a
of
lot of
responsibility,
responsibility. But it's
especially
like,
if you're living through your own trauma loops
yeah,
through the kind of world that we're talking about.
yeah.
Um, and man, tell me more. You do music. I'm
This
so
this
interested. Yeah, let's
this
lighten
whole
it.
conversation is just it's really powerful. We have so much to talk about, man.
I want to keep talking. I want to lighten it up a little bit because it's been really heavy. Can we
Please,
talk about
yeah,
music
it
for a
has
little
been
bit?
happening.
Oh my God, this
Dude,
is so
yeah.
good. I can clear my afternoon and just talk to you until we're done and just have a free flowing long form conversation that's nice and easy, unless you have to go in a few minutes. But I really want to talk
I
to you about music because you do recording and I do music. Dude, I like
so
part of my journey includes a music education degree and 4 years in the Ohio State
nice,
marching band and being a singer songwriter for the last 15 plus.
nice.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of music. There's a bunch of music I've written, but not a whole bunch of music that I've like recorded. Because that's its own recording is its own skill set to begin with. But tell
I
me more
see the
about
guitar
yours.
behind you.
Yeah, that guy. That's
Yeah, nice, man.
sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla.
Yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. Yeah. So like I said, grew up playing music. It started with drums, then went to bass, then guitar. I played in a bunch of of bands through like high school and middle school, high school, and then a little bit in college. And then I moved to New York, had a band in New York, and played guitar and sang singer-songwriter style. It's just music has always been an important part of my life.
Yeah.
And you know what's happening now, and I'm not gonna talk. Well, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about this. So recently I started working with this company who is creating a sound bed. And what it is, it's a vibroacoustic technology that vibrates in different places on your body. So it's basically like, when we have a speaker as a transducer that vibrates, that's hooked up to a cone that moves the air, and we get sound that way. This is hooked up directly to different panels on the bed. And so I went and
Oh,
met
sound
my
healing.
buddy. Yeah, sound healing.
Sound healing in a big way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a
So
fascinating line of conversation.
powerful.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man. So my
Oh,
buddy, I came to Austin and surprised him, and he's like, "You gotta experience this."
yeah.
And he put me on it, and I looked at him and I was like, "Dude, do you recognize the clinical applications and implications of this?" And he
Careful,
was
the
like,
profit model might not be there.
"Yep."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Yep, and so anyways, we're working together. So it's basically past was all music, present is all, and now we're bringing them together. And I'm doing work with some studies
One
and
second. You said past was all music, present is all, and then the picture went, and I missed you. What did you say there? Present is all
medicine,
medicine,
medicine.
and the
Yeah,
future is
like since
all,
my injury, and the
yeah.
future is the marriage of the two. Boom.
Wow.
And yeah, so
Mhm.
music and medicine, and it's been really cool bringing that together, setting up production, and getting back into playing music more,
Mhm.
because like honestly, I put it in the background, and
Mhm.
my focus became music, or sorry, medicine,
Mhm.
and it feels really good to be bringing it back together.
Music and medicine. Oh my gosh, we have
Music
so
and
much
medicine.
overlap in the things that we are interested in and the ways that we're here to shed light to other people to like help grow consciousness, which is I think what a lot of things ultimately come down to, or like, we are figments of one everything experiencing itself. And music, there, as you're talking about all those things, a lot of things, a lot came to my mind, and I'm just thinking, which direction do we go in? Because music, I wonder how much trauma you experienced that music helps you transform in your own experience, and how that informs the music that you create.
Well, I gotta tell you this, Josh. I'm to to move on in about 5 minutes.
Mm,
But as far
part
as
two on
trauma,
its way. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, as far as trauma goes, trauma and music is,
For
for
your
me,
experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
both both um both writing and playing. Writing like writing, just like writing books, writing my blog, things of that sort, have been extremely cathartic. And then with music, it's so interesting to me to have this co-creative experience um with the instrument, where the instrument is
Mm,
creating and so am I, and it's this feedback loop. And it's like, or maybe something else is, because honestly, a lot of my lyrics just kind of come out, And I'm like, whoa, did I? Cool. That's going in the song, right? Like just allowing myself to sing. And I wrote a song called "The Angel's Fool." I believe
Mm,
I have it on one of my SoundClouds. You go to adventuresinbraininjury.com/music, and some of my music is there. I haven't recorded too much recently, but there's a song called "Angel's Fool," and that's one of those um, where it really spoke to everything that happened in my experience.
mm,
As far as the as far as the angels um, being, whether they're beings or forces or spirits or whatever saved me, whatever brought me back from a coma, call it
mhm.
whatever you will. You know, I gave it I gave it a name, Angel, and
So Angel's Fool is
the
about coming back from a coma.
yeah. So basically, it's about uh it's about a change in consciousness, honestly, of
Mm,
like
hmm.
not letting the angels fool you. Don't let these other forces take control of you. And then it's kind of this balance of control and surrender,
Mm,
and trust. And trust is one of what is a very, very powerful word,
mm.
because trust, truth, love, like all of those, man, those are
Principles
those
of
are
consciousness.
those are definitely
Oh my
principles that
gosh.
resonate with me as far as
Yeah.
consciousness goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pandora's box just got opened, and we gotta wrap it up.
I love it. I can't wait to dive into Pandora's box maybe on another episode. Uh, does
Sounds
that sound
great.
good? All right,
Yeah,
cool. Well, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyable conversation, and I'm super excited to talk to you again soon.
totally, man. Thank you so much, Josh. Keep
Cheers.
on thriving, baby.